Robert Matthews was 58 years old and he had everything a man could want: a successful career in finance, a beautiful penthouse overlooking the city, and most precious of all, his 4-year-old daughter, Emma. She was his world, his second chance at life after losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago. It was a crisp autumn evening when Robert picked Emma up from daycare. The golden leaves scattered across the sidewalk, and the street lights were just beginning to glow. Emma wore her favorite pink dress and matching hat, chattering excitedly about her day as she held her father's hand. They walked down Maple Street, a route Robert had taken 1,000 times. But this evening would be different. On the wooden bench ahead, a woman lay slumped against the armrest. Her blonde hair fell across her face, and her cream-colored dress was wrinkled and damp from the earlier rain. She looked to be in her early 30s, exhausted beyond measure. Robert's instinct was to walk past quickly. He had appointments to keep, dinner to prepare, and Emma's bedtime routine to maintain. The city was full of people in difficult situations, and he couldn't help everyone. That's what he told himself. But Emma stopped walking. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging his hand. "That lady looks sleepy." Robert glanced at his watch. "Come on, sweetheart. We need to get home." Emma didn't move. Her small fingers tightened around his. "Is she okay?" Robert looked at the woman again. Really looked this time. Her shoes were worn but clean. Her dress, though disheveled, had once been elegant. There was a small leather purse clutched in her arms. This wasn't someone who had been living on the streets for years. This was someone whose life had recently fallen apart. He saw himself in her, in a strange way. 3 years ago, he had been that broken. Sitting in hospital corridors, sleeping in chairs, losing everything that mattered while the world walked by. "Wait here for just a moment," Robert told Emma, guiding her to stand by a lamppost. "Don't move." He approached the bench slowly. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Miss, are you all right?" The woman stirred. Her eyes opened, red and swollen from crying. She looked startled, frightened even. "I'm sorry," she mumbled, trying to sit up. "I'll move." "I'm sorry." "No, please," Robert said, raising his hand gently. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay." "Do you need help?" The woman's face crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I lost my job 2 weeks ago, then my apartment. I've been staying with friends, but I can't keep imposing. I was supposed to meet someone about a room to rent, but they never showed up. I just sat down for a minute, and I guess I just couldn't get up." Her name was Catherine. She had worked as a hotel manager until the property was sold and the entire staff let go. No savings, no family nearby, just a cascade of bad luck that had left her with nowhere to turn. Emma had crept closer, despite Robert's instructions. She was staring at Catherine with those big, curious eyes that children have before the world teaches them to look away. "You have pretty hair," Emma said simply. Catherine managed a small smile through her tears. "Thank you, sweetheart." Robert made a decision. "Catherine, there's a diner 2 blocks from here. Would you join us for dinner? No strings attached, just a warm meal." Catherine hesitated, pride warred with desperation on her face. "I couldn't." "Please," Robert said, "let me do this. For someone who once needed the same kindness." Over coffee and sandwiches, Catherine's story unfolded. She wasn't asking for handouts. She had interviews lined up, leads on rooms she could afford once she got her first paycheck. She just needed to survive the next 2 weeks. Robert listened, really listened. He remembered being in that hospital, feeling invisible, wondering if he'd ever feel human again. He remembered the nurse who had brought him coffee without being asked, the janitor who had sat with him at 3 in the morning and talked about baseball, small kindnesses that had kept him going. "I have a property management company that handles my investments," Robert said carefully. "One of the buildings has a furnished studio. It's been vacant for a month. You could stay there temporarily, just until you get back on your feet." Catherine's eyes widened. "I can't accept that." "You can pay me back when you're able," Robert said. "Consider it a loan. Or better yet, consider it paying forward the kindness someone showed me once." Emma was coloring on a napkin with crayons the waitress had brought. She looked up at Catherine and said, "You can be our friend." That simple statement from a 4-year-old who saw no difference between the man in the expensive suit and the woman who had been sleeping on a bench broke something open in all of them. Catherine moved into the studio the next day. True to her word, she landed a job within 10 days as an assistant manager at a boutique hotel. She insisted on paying rent, even though Robert tried to refuse it. Within 6 months, she had saved enough to move into her own place. But something had shifted in Robert, too. He started volunteering at a shelter downtown. He set up a foundation to help people experiencing temporary housing crises, the ones who fell through the cracks between having a job and being able to afford first and last month's rent. Emma and Catherine became friends, real friends. Catherine taught Emma to braid hair and told her stories. Robert learned that wealth wasn't about the money in his account, but about the richness of human connection. Years later, Robert would think back to that autumn evening. How close he had come to walking past. How easy it would have been to tell himself it wasn't his problem, that he had his own life to worry about. But Emma had stopped. And in stopping, she had taught him the most valuable lesson of his life. That kindness doesn't cost anything, except the willingness to see another person's humanity. That we are all one bad month, one lost job, one tragedy away from needing someone to stop and ask if we're okay. The photo that went viral wasn't the one of Robert walking past. It was the one someone took of all three of them at the diner. Emma showing Catherine her coloring, while Robert smiled with more warmth in his eyes than he'd felt in years. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives are the ones where we choose to stop instead of keep walking. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about kindness and the unexpected ways we can change each other's lives. And leave a comment below telling us about a time someone showed you kindness when you needed it most. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right